What if one question from Frank Caputo exposed a reality that most Canadians were never supposed to hear? What if Aaron O'Gorman confirmed on record that tens of thousands of people ordered to leave Canada cannot be located at all? No addresses, no clear locations, just warrants and questions. And when Frank Caputo pushed further, asking how many people are actually out there walking free with not legal status looking for these individuals, the answers became unclear, unspecific, and uncomfortable. Then comes Gary Anandasangari, asked about Canada's preparedness, about drug detection, about fentanyl, and suddenly, even basic numbers are hard to find. These are direct questions and direct answers that raise serious questions to understand about safety, enforcement, and accountability in Canada. If you live in Canada, this video matters to you. Stay until the end, because each clip connects to the next. And by the time you hear the final answer, you'll see the bigger picture most people never do.
You don't have addresses for people in the removal queue, that's correct?
Well, you made reference to a particular part of the removal queue.
Before you watch this next clip, I want you to slow down and really think about what you are about to hear. When a person is issued a warrant in Canada, most people assume that authorities know exactly who they are, where they are, and that there is an active process in place to locate them. That is the common sense understanding. A warrant is not just a word. It implies tracking, coordination, and control. Next, you will hear a conversation between Frank Caputo and Aaron O'Gorman that most Canadians would never expect. Frank Caputo asks a question that seems simple, almost too straightforward, but the answer reveals something shocking which amazed you. He wants to know if there are addresses for 32,000 people who are deportable and on warrant. At first, it sounds like a routine inquiry, but the response changes everything. Aaron, O'Gorman admits that they do not know where these people are, no addresses, no locations. This means that tens of thousands of deportation orders exist, but enforcement is basically blind. If you live in Canada, this is important because it directly affects public safety and accountability. Listen closely to how Frank Caputo pressures Aaron O'Gorman for clarity, and notice the way the numbers and facts reveal a system that is not as controlled as you might think. This moment is the start of a conversation that will reveal several shocking truths, and you need to hear it to understand what comes next. Keep focused till end of the video.
Ms. O'Gorman, do you have addresses for the 32,000 people listed on your website who are currently deportable and on warrant, as in you don't know where they are? Do you have addresses for those people?
Well, as you say, we don't know where they are, so we don't have their addresses.
So when the minister says, and this was his testimony last time, Mr. Caputo, we have addresses for individuals who are in the removal queue.
Do you know where thousands of people in Canada's removal queue actually are right now? This matters for Canadians because the government admits they don't have addresses for 32,000 people who are currently deportable. The reality is that even ministers and enforcement agencies do not know where these individuals are located. This shows a serious gap in the system, which can directly impact public safety, resource allocation, and how effective removal and enforcement actions can be in communities across the country. In this part, Frank Caputo questions Aaron O'Gorman about whether they have addresses for people on the removal queue. Aaron admits that they do not know the locations of many individuals. Frank points out the contradiction between ministerial testimony, claiming they have addresses for those in the removal queue, and the reality that enforcement doesn't know where these people are. This reveals a massive disconnect between what is claimed in official testimony and what is happening on the ground, showing Canadians the limitations of the current system. Important points reveal the reality more. Even government ministers and enforcement agencies don't know where many people are. This shows a gap between official claims and the reality of removal enforcement. Canadians need to know this to understand the limitations and risks in public safety. Thousands of individuals in the removal queue have unknown locations.
You don't have addresses for people in the removal queue, that's correct?
Well, you made reference to a particular part of the removal queue. And so we have removals in progress, We know where those people are. We are in close touch with them. We are ensuring they are removed. We do have warrants out for individuals who have absconded.
Right. You don't know where they are.
Do you know how many armed officers are actively searching for individuals on removal warrants in Canada right now? This matters for Canadians because the number of enforcement officers directly impacts public safety and the effectiveness of removal operations. If too few officers are deployed, many individuals who should be removed may remain free, which can affect communities across the country. Understanding this number reveals the limitations of current resources and how the system actually functions behind official claims. Next, you will hear Frank Caputo questions Aaron O'Gorman about how many inland enforcement officers are dealing with removals and warrants. Aaron explains that there are approximately 1,000 inland enforcement officers, with about 500 specifically doing removals and others handling detentions or hearings. She also notes that their work may occasionally include direct interactions with individuals on warrants. This shows Canadians that even though numbers may sound high, the actual daily deployment to track and remove individuals is limited, highlighting the challenges and gaps in enforcement. Important points reveal the reality more. Officers also handle detentions, hearings, and administrative tasks, reducing daily field presence. There are approximately 1,000 inland enforcement officers, but only about 500 are focused on removals.
How many armed officers do you have looking for these individuals?
So I'm going to expand it a little bit.
Okay.
We have 1,000 inland enforcement officers who deal with IRPA. So they may be in our detention facilities, they may be doing IRB hearings, or they may be doing removals. Approximately 500 people are doing removals. They may occasionally do a hearing. They may be dealing with somebody in detention.
Do you know how many CBSA officers are actively searching for fugitives on a daily basis? This matters for Canadians because the number of active officers directly affects how many individuals on warrants can actually be located and removed. The reality is that even with hundreds of officers, the daily deployment may be limited, leaving gaps in enforcement that could impact public safety. Knowing this helps Canadians understand the scale of resources actually available and the limitations of current operations. Next, you will see how Frank Caputo questions Aaron O'Gorman about the number of officers working daily to locate and remove individuals on warrants. Aaron explains that approximately half of the officers are directly dealing with removals, supported by administrative staff to handle files. Frank points out that this means only about 500 armed officers are working daily to track fugitives. This shows Canadians that while the CBSA has a large number of officers, the number actually active in the field each day is limited, highlighting a gap between numbers and daily capacity. Important points reveal the reality more. Approximately half of CBSA officers are directly involved in removals. Administrative staff support enforcement, but field presence remains limited. Only about 500 armed officers are working daily to locate fugitives. This highlights the gap between CBSA claims and the reality of field enforcement.
I can say approximately half of those people are dealing with removals, and they're supported by administrative help who deal with the files so that they can do the going out and finding people.
So you're telling me that on a daily basis or day to day, there are 500 people in CBSA approximately 500 people who are armed and are looking for these fugitives. Is that accurate?
Do you know how many armed CBSA officers are actually on the street daily in the GTA looking for people on warrants? This matters for Canadians because the GTA is one of the largest and most populated regions in the country. If only a small number of officers are actively searching for individuals on warrants, each day it raises serious questions about enforcement capacity. The reality is that while total officer numbers may sound large, the daily street presence may be much lower. Next, Aaron O'Gorman explains that there is a lot happening within inland enforcement and that their work involves individuals in Canada who may pose a risk. However, Frank Caputo challenges the scale of daily enforcement by stating that in the GTA, only about 55 officers are armed, and approximately 10 are actually on the street daily looking for people on warrants. This moment shifts the discussion from total staffing numbers to actual daily deployment, giving Canadians a clearer picture of what enforcement really looks like on the ground. Important points reveal the reality more. Inland enforcement handles individuals who may pose a risk to Canadians. Approximately 55 armed officers are reported in the GTA. Only about 10 may be on the street daily looking for warrant subjects.
I'm going to say approximately because there's a lot going on in our inland enforcement, but they relate to individuals who are in Canada who perhaps should not be here, who are in Canada who might pose a risk to Canadians.
Okay. My information is that in the GTA there are only 55 people who are armed, approximately, and that about 10 are on the street daily looking for people who are on warrant. Would you dispute that number?
Do you know how many drug sniffer dogs the CBSA actually has across Canada? This matters for Canadians because drug detection is a frontline defense against trafficking at borders and within the country. The reality is that Canada may only have between 65 to 75 drug sniffer dogs nationwide, which is a limited number for a country this size. These dogs play a critical role in intercepting illegal substances, including dangerous drugs. Understanding this number helps Canadians see the scale of resources actually available. In next part of the video, Aaron O'Gorman responds to questions about armed officers and explains that not all CBSA officers are armed, but some still assist in executing removals. She states she will provide a more precise breakdown later. The discussion then shifts when Frank Caputo asks a new question about how many drug sniffer dogs are trained within the CBSA. Gary Anandasangare responds from recollection, stating that the number is between 65 and 75. This moment moves the focus from officer numbers to drug detection capacity across the country. Important points reveal the reality more. Not all CBSA officers are armed, but some still assist with removals. A breakdown of armed versus non-armed officers was not immediately provided. CBSA has approximately 65 to 75 drug sniffer dogs nationwide.
So your
This is for the
precision around being armed, I am going to have to come back to you.
Could you
because
please?
we do have CBSA officers who may not be armed, but who will be helping to execute removal. So I'll come back to you with a breakdown.
Okay. How many dogs have been trained to as drug sniffer dogs in the CBSA?
I'm going off recollection. I'm going to say between 65 to 75.
Okay.
Do you know how many dogs in Canada are actually trained to track fentanyl, or is the number still zero? This matters for Canadians because fentanyl is one of the most dangerous drugs impacting communities today. The reality is that while CBSA has different types of detector dogs, fentanyl-specific training is still in its early stages. That means capacity may be extremely limited or not fully operational yet. Understanding this shows Canadians whether enforcement tools match the scale of the crisis. You will hear next part, Aaron O'Gorman returns with a breakdown of the types of dogs CBSA currently has, including drug detector dogs, currency dogs, and food, plant, and animal dogs. Frank Caputo then shifts the focus directly to fentanyl, asking how many dogs have been trained specifically to track it. Gary Anandasangare responds that this is a new area and that training is still in the early stages, with plans to enhance it over the coming months. Frank presses again, asking for a number rather than a general response. This moment highlights the difference between general drug detection capacity and specific fentanyl detection readiness. Important points reveal the reality more. CBSA has drug detector dogs, currency dogs, and food plant animal dogs. Fentanyl-specific training is a new and developing area. No clear number was provided for fentanyl-trained dogs. Capacity for fentanyl detection appears to be in early stages.
We'll come back with a breakdown. We have drug detector dogs, we have currency dogs, and we have food, plant, and animal dogs.
How many dogs have been trained to track fentanyl?
Again, that's a new area, Mr. Caputo, so we're at the early stages of that training, and we will be enhancing that over the coming months.
So again, when it comes to the number, I don't want whether we're early, I want a number.
Do you know if any CBSA dogs have actually completed fentanyl training? Or are we still at zero? This matters for Canadians because there is a big difference between working on training and actually having fully trained dogs ready for deployment. The reality is that even after discussing partnerships with the US and allies, there is still uncertainty about whether any dogs have completed training. If none have finished, that means Canada may not yet have operational fentanyl tracking dogs. This directly affects readiness and public safety. In Next, Erin O'Gorman states that fentanyl training is a new area and that the Americans were forerunners. She explains that Canada is working with the US and other allies on this issue. Frank Caputo then becomes direct and asks a clear question. Have any dogs completed the training? Erin responds that she is not sure if they have completed it. Frank concludes by stating that this could mean Canada may actually have no dogs fully trained to track fentanyl. This moment shifts the discussion from plans and collaboration to actual results and current capability. Important points reveal the reality more. Fentanyl training is described as a new area for CBSA. The U.S. is identified as a forerunner in this training. There is uncertainty about whether any dogs have completed fentanyl training.
Doing that right now, it's quite a new area. I believe the Americans were forerunners. We are working with them, but we're also working with allies.
I'm not trying to cut you off, but I'll be very direct. Have any dogs completed the training to track fentanyl for the CBSA?
I'm not sure if they've completed the training.
Okay, so we may actually have no dogs.
Do you know whether Canada actually has any dogs right now that can track fentanyl, or are we still uncertain? This matters for Canadians because fentanyl trafficking has been described as a serious national issue. If the United States already has trained dogs and Canada cannot confirm whether it has any, that raises questions about readiness. The reality is that there appears to be uncertainty at a senior level about current capacity. In this next part, Frank Caputo states that the United States has dogs trained to track fentanyl and questions whether Canada, including the RCMP or CBSA, has the same capability. He expresses concern that there may be zero dogs currently tracking fentanyl and points out that this issue has been central to government responses, including legislative actions. He then asks directly whether CBSA has any dogs that know how to track fentanyl. Important points reveal the reality more. The U.S. is confirmed to have dogs trained to track fentanyl. There is uncertainty about whether Canada has the same capability. The possibility of zero operational dogs is raised. A direct question is asked about CBSA's current fentanyl tracking capacity.
The U.S. has dogs to track fentanyl, I assume. I assume they're the RCMP, I assume. I'm not sure if anybody at the RCMP can tell us whether there are dogs to track fentanyl. What I'm hearing is we don't actually know. It sounds like there might be zero dogs tracking fentanyl at this time, even though the problem of fentanyl trafficking has been at the feet of this government, which beckoned the response of C2 and C12. Do we have any dogs that know how to track fentanyl with the CBSA?
Do you know whether Canada currently has any fully operational fentanyl detection dogs, or is it still a work in progress? This is the final clarification on current capacity, not future plans. The reality is that, while other Five Eyes countries have demonstrated dogs trained for fentanyl, Canada appears to still be working toward that capability. This confirms that full operational readiness may not yet be in place. For Canadians, this answer defined the difference between active deployment and development stage preparation. In this final part, Gary Anandasangari references a Five Eyes meeting in the UK where dogs trained to detect fentanyl were demonstrated. He states that other countries do have such dogs and that some are in the process of training. When Frank Caputo presses directly, "Does Canada?" Gary responds that At this point, Canada is working toward ensuring they have dogs capable of detecting fentanyl. He does not confirm current operational dogs and ends by noting that his time is up. This concludes the discussion by clarifying that Canada is still building this capacity rather than confirming existing deployment. Important points reveal the reality more. Other Five Eyes countries have demonstrated fentanyl-trained dogs. Canada is still working toward ensuring this capability. No clear confirmation of current operational fentanyl dogs was provided.
If I may answer this, Mr. Caputo, we were at the Five Eyes in the UK back in September, and there was a demonstration of dogs that are now trained with fentanyl. So they do have a number of dogs. The other five countries are in the process of doing the training. So we are.
But does Canada?
At this point, we are working towards ensuring we have dogs who can detect fentanyl.
I see my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caputo.
After watching this entire hearing, here's what we now know. Thousands of individuals in the removal queue have unknown locations. Even officials admitted they do not know where many of them are. We learned that while there may be 1,000 inland enforcement officers, only about 500 handle removals. And in major regions like the GTA, the daily street presence may be as low as around 10 officers looking for people on warrants. We also discovered that CBSA has between 65 to 75 drug sniffer dogs. But when it comes to fentanyl, training is still in early stages. No clear confirmation was given that Canada currently has fully operational fentanyl detection dogs. Other countries in the Five Eyes Alliance have demonstrated this capability. Canada, as stated, is still working towards it. This video wasn't about opinion. It was about the actual words said during the hearing. Now the question is, are the current resources enough? And does the public have a clear picture of enforcement capacity? If you want more breakdowns of House of Commons hearings, immigration updates, enforcement discussions, and Canada policy analysis, make sure you subscribe to Canada Insight Network. Stay informed, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next video.